go. All right, so this is a new opening to the show because the Doomers again are sitting there with egg on their face, clawing, scraping, crying, tapping their diapers, and everything's happened. So this happened on Fox News this morning. Remember the fraud out in Minnesota? A lot of it exposed by independent journalist Nick Shirley. Well, you know what? Let's do it in this order. Let's do it the right order. I'll mess it up. This just happened a few minutes before we came off the air. Looks like 22 separate locations were hit. Here's a Fox News report from just a few minutes ago. Check this out.
DOJ confirms to Fox News that FBI and HSI agents are currently serving 22 court-approved search warrants in the Minneapolis area this morning in relation to federal fraud investigations. One of those locations is the infamous Quality Learning Center, which you see here.
Very good. Very good. I like that. Now, of course, the Doomers, even when you post that, were still upset. Were they not just, well, glad you guys got on that after all that work was done. Actually, we've been working on it the entire time I was there. No, you haven't. Oh, well, actually, we have. You can actually look yourself. March 20th, 2026, a case that's been going on for a long time. 5 more plead guilty in Feeding Our Futures fraud scheme out there in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Prosecutors have now obtained 63 convictions. Scheme-wide. Do you think that happened overnight? Listen, folks, I get it. Don't ever over-explain yourself. The good folks out there who understand people are working really hard to clean up our government, they don't need to hear it 1,000 times. And the Doomers don't give a shit either. The Doomers are just going to find something else to doom and gloom about. So it doesn't matter. But, however, this is a politics and news show, and this is news. So although I'm vested in it because I was personally involved in a lot of this, I also feel the need to cover the freaking news. Of course, another one that happened this morning, you were told nothing was happening on the whole COVID thing and the weaponization of government. Nothing was happening there either. You remember that one, Justin? You were told, correct? Nothing was happening there. Nothing was happening on left-wing groups. Nothing was happening on Antifa, despite multiple convictions, arrests, the SPLC, BLM, nothing's ever happening. So this just happened this morning on the COVID stuff. Matter of fact, Justin doesn't do a lot of commentary pre-show. Justin was like, wow, that's news. This happened this morning. New York Post. Anthony Fauci advisor indicted by DOJ. That's not possible. Nothing is happening, folks. Nothing is happening. Nothing. You starting to wonder to yourself, like, if these Doomers are pillars and they're liberal media friends, but liberal media friends complain about what's happening. That's the difference. They both want the destruction of the MAGA movement. They come from it from different directions. The liberal media complains about all the stuff that's happening. I just saw one of these dipshits yesterday. This guy I used to be friends with, total moron. I think he's a lawyer. He's got a show. He's just a total tool. I saw him last night when I was talking about the 2 FBIs, a clip I'll play later on Hannity. Responds, well, what happened to the other one? Gee, I don't know. You could have actually listened to the special today and found out where we noted that roughly 10% of the workforce had separated. Multiple people were fired for weaponization. You could have listened to that, but you don't. You just want to be a dumbass doomer, because you wanted to destroy the movement from inside the tent. Now we've had accountability on Antifa, the SPLC, BLM. We had that huge arrest for the Benghazi tragedy. We had Bakush. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. We now have this COVID case with some indictments. We've had cases, BAL 917. I don't know, considering all the pardons and stuff. I don't know about that one, but folks, listen, it's incredibly important you understand. Incredibly important you understand that this is not a genuine, authentic movement, the Doomers and the Pillars. There is a ton of money floating into the, air quotes, right-wing ecosystem to create an insider threat from inside the tent. I want you to watch this because there is this deadly symbiote. Like you guys read comics, the Eddie Brock Venom. You have any Venom from the Spider-Man? This microbial thing infects Eddie Brock, becomes his special suit, becomes Venom, right? They work together to do really bad things. There's a symbiote out there too. It's just not a Spider-Man comic. It's nothing to do with Marvel. The symbiote are foreign actors who hate the United States, specific foreign governments with a lot of money, who are floating money into the confusion ecosystem to create a sense of confusion so that everybody can't trust anybody and the whole system collapses. I'm going to play a Bezmenov clip in a minute. I'll show you what I mean. This is intentional and it's happening. This foreign money is very real. When you combine that with left-wing groups and you see the allegations against the SPLC, you see what's been going on with Antifa, you've got a really dangerous witch's brew. That is the real inside threat. These liberal, non-governmental organizations, many of them up to no good, paying a lot of money to basically fertilize violence and hatred. And then you combine it with geometrically more foreign money coming into our own tent to foster division. And it's amazing we even survived this stuff, given how much agitprop you're being subjected to every day. Why am I so outspoken about these ops? Because I've seen things. And I've seen the damage being done by this, and I see what's happening. It's real. These people who are, be careful who you trust. These people telling you, oh, trust me, I'm just asking questions, are not asking questions. They're not asking questions at all. They're being paid to foster division. How do I know they're not asking questions? Because when you give them the answer, they just move on to something else. I want you to watch this. This is a clip on CNBC. This is the Southern District of New York United States Attorney. The United States Attorney is the lead prosecutor for the Department of Justice in districts around the country. This is the big boss. You may have heard of him, Jay Clayton, pretty good guy. Here he is in a hit media appearance on CNBC, and he's talking about these prosecutions, and he mentions something at the end of this I want you to pay very close attention to, in case you think I'm just making all this up. And you think that these people, not you all out there, you watch my show, so we're pretty good. This is like the Compass True North show. But you watch these other shows, people just asking questions. In case you think this is real, it's not real. Most of it's just BS being financed. Here, check this out.
Let me tie this to a recent event. I mean, this was horrible. Amplifying somebody like this's message, just stupid. Let's just call it what it is, stupid. Okay. We had a case in the Justice Department last week, the Southern Poverty Law Center. The case, at bottom, and these are allegations, but at bottom, the allegations are that this organization was creating hate in order to expand their mission of combating hate. If that's going on, and it is, it's going on in America. It's going on through organizations like that. It's also going on with foreign actors funding these types of organizations because they want us to fight with each other. So everybody needs to take a step back and say, who is causing me to have these emotions? And are we creating an environment where those emotions are causing us to do things that are harmful to the American public?
So, Justin, just to be clear, the doomers and the pillars and the bullshitters. Donald Trump, President Trump appointed me, Cash, Jay Clayton, and others. We're all just lying to you about this. It's weird how everybody's saying the same thing, and we're all just lying to you for some unknown reason. We definitely all went in the government because of the big money. I got very rich in the government, that was huge. Checks were amazing. I hope you sense the dripping sarcasm there. What motive would I possibly have to come out and bullshit you that there is a lot of foreign money and influence being pushed and shoved down your freaking throat like syrup of Ipecac to confuse you, to get you to not trust anyone, the president, the vice president, Rubio, Hegseth, Patel, me, anyone else. This is all bullshit. Every single thing they told you wasn't happening has been happening and evolving quite quickly over the last few weeks as years of work, years, notice years I said with an S, because some of this stuff, to be fair, didn't even start under us. We just finished it. Years of this work is going on right now. Why are they doing this? Because, folks, foreign actors combined with left-wing agitprop groups have the same goal. How do you collapse the constitutional republic from the inside because we can't beat it from the outside? It's the same goal. It's no different. Everybody telling you this stuff, that if when they tell you these crazy lunatic things and they make up these bizarre conspiracy theoretical bullshit out there, I'm really stunned at how many people fall for this stuff without a shred of evidence. Folks, there's a penalty for it. The penalty for it is what I showed you yesterday on the show. How two people who tried to either kill, assassinate, or do significant damage to Donald Trump and his property, i.e. the guy who tried to attack Mar-a-Lago a few months ago with the gas cans, who was killed, and then this the suspect in this recent assassination attempt this weekend, they're citing the very same narratives a lot of these foreign actors are injecting into, mainlining into the, American the circulatory system. Man, I'm sorry if you're falling for this and you're promoting this stuff. I am. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you did not learn better, skills for discriminating bullshit from reality. It's not going to serve you well the rest of your life. And listen, again, these people committing this violence, there is no two sides argument here, folks. There is one side, as I said on Hannity's show last night, there is one side trying to shoot and kill the president and anyone else around him. Look up that, the California case where the guy showed up to the studio with my name and others on there? Well, we've been part of this too. There are people trying to kill us, and then there's us on this side calling out political violence every single place we see it. And it happens to be mostly overwhelming majority of it on the left. There's not a both sides argument. I heard Paul Morrow from Fox, good friend, say yesterday, I only see the bullets going one way. Me too, Paul. And in case you think you're going to get any apologies from these people, I'm warning you, the left they're done. They're done. They have forfeited any attachment to morality, ethics, human dignity. They're done. They don't care. Hakeem Jeffries, who I called out last night on Fox, is doubling down. We don't need to be civil. We're not asking you for civility. I'm not asking you to shake my hand, give me a pat on the back, give me a dab, right? Respectfully submit it at the end of your emails. I'm just asking you to stop shooting the president. That's it. It's not hard. They are not in any way retreating from this position. You cannot shame shameless people. They don't care. Watch this video. This is Democrat Congressman Raj Krishnamurthy. Here he is, not only not apologizing for any of this stuff, this leftist rhetoric. Here he is. So I just think there's this illusion out there that, eventually the left will turn around and come around. They will not. They're not interested. We are in a really dangerous place. Here he is blaming Donald Trump for being a victim of a potential assassination. Check this out.
Tremendous, as you can understand, concern given the threat levels that are going up in part because of the president and now 3 assassination attempts on him, his very low approval ratings, which unfortunately fuel a lot of disaffection.
It's not just him. You may be saying to yourself, wow, that's one example of, one totally disconnected from reality congressman on the Democrat side. No, it's not. I just told you. Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, he did the same thing yesterday. We're not going to be lectured on civility. No one's lecturing you on civility. Sometimes in the show, I use curse words and can get emotional about something. I'm not telling you we got to, sit around and drink tea and eat crumpets together, roast s'mores around the campfire while singing gospel music. I would love that to happen. It's not going to happen. We're just asking you to stop promoting agitprop false narratives, a lot funded by foreign actors, some of this funded by left-wing groups that are leading to the president of the United States being shot at multiple times. People have already died, folks. Don't fall for the BS line. Oh, someone's going to die with this. Corey Comparator's already dead. People have already died because of left-wing lunacy. The no kings thing is another one. In addition to all the other Nazi-type rhetoric, fascist rhetoric about Donald Trump, here's Donald Trump, the king, if you believe the malevolent king, if you believe bullshit left-wing garbage, who just does an interview after an attempted assassination again, does an interview with 61 Minutes with Norah O'Donnell. It's a quick one, but he's just like, king, if I was a king, what the hell am I doing here with you? Check. He's on at 60 Minutes, folks. It wasn't like Breitbart. It wasn't BizPac Review or some conservative outlet. It's 60 Minutes. If this guy's a king, why is he going on an outlet that hates his guts to try to make the case that we got to kind of dial this stuff down? Because he's a king? Does that even make sense to you? It goes back to my larger point. This isn't just complaining about it. I'm trying to tell you there's very little chance right now that you are going to talk the left into toning down the violence. I'm not telling you that we shouldn't expose it, because remember the Dan Bongino principle, debating with the left. You're not going to convince the radical leftist he's not insane. You're not. They're in the padded room already. However, there's another person listening. There's always a third person listening. And this country is populated by 330 million people, the overwhelming majority who are good, sane, decent people. I promise. They are the ones you're trying to convince. You are not going to convince Hakeem Jeffries, Raj Krishnamurthy, Ro Khanna, the biggest fraud up there. You're not going to convince The View or 61 Minutes or anyone to tone it down. The hatred. I had a friend in the Secret Service told me one time, he said, Dan, don't let the evil in. In other words, like he was talking about, like, don't tell the guys, like, don't be lazy on these trips. You got to work, you got to work, you got to work. Once you let the evil in, that's it. The evil is in. It's permeated the leftist soul. It's spread in the circulatory system. It's infected their DNA. You can only hope to stop the third person from falling in the same trap. It is clear as day that the suspect in this case, at the Hilton attempted assassination, based on his own manifesto, has been motivated by things like the Donald Trump's a pedophile thing. These are all bullshit narratives. It's clear as day if you read this manifesto and you read other manifestos from people who tried to attack Donald Trump, engage in school shootings and elsewhere. It's clear. They will never acknowledge this. What they will do, I'm going to play this clip from Ana Navarro in The View because I want to show you what they do here. This is the fallacy of diffuse responsibility. Remember this. This idea that individuals are not responsible for their own behavior, the system did it, the man did it. Whenever you hear systemic discrimination, the man, the corporations, and they don't talk about individual responsibility, they're doing it because they're rationalizing their own need for violence and bloodshed. They know they know by instinct it's wrong, but they want to believe it's right, so they diffuse the responsibility to everyone else, the system, the man, social murder. Another thing they'll do, they will ignore the variable here that matters. You ever do experimental work in sciences? You have the independent variable, the dependent variable. Then you have confounding variables. In other words, variables that are not involved in the experimental effect. It's not a science class. However, if you're trying to study if cold weather causes head colds, you want to make sure that you isolate out other variables. I think a better way to say it, say you got a treatment for a cold. You want to make sure you isolate it. You don't want to give one person a treatment in 90 degrees and one person a treatment in 30 degrees because then it's a confounding variable. Like, well, what did it? Was it the medicine or was it the temperature change? That's a better way to describe it. You've got to control confounding variables. Watch Ana Navarro here blame every single thing but the actual variable here, which is left-wing agitprop. Check this out.
Now that that room was full of some of the most important political.
I had to jump the views because they like giving copyright. I'm sorry. Hold on. So I hope it's not that much. They like to give copyright a lot.
Churches, in temples,
baseball
and Walmart.
Fields. We saw it
in baseball
with the Republicans.
And so,
do you see what she's doing here? This is super important, that clip. I'd play it again, but you can rewind it video on demand. You got to listen to what she does again. This is the mark of the imbecile. I'm serious. What smart people do, like you, is you take a pool of data and variables out there in the world. The weather, your emotional state, did you sleep last night, crime conditions. You take a bunch of variables, right? And you distill it down to the one variable that made a difference. You get a bunch of information about a bank robbery that happened at 4 o'clock yesterday in Martin County, Florida. What do? You do say you do a geofence warrant. You have 100 people in there. You distill it down to the one person who's most likely. You look at their social media history. You look at all this other stuff. Guys talking about robbing a bank a month ago. Maybe that's your guy. You get rid of all the unnecessary information, process the necessary information, you come to an answer. What the moron does is the opposite. They have an answer. Left-wing violence. You read the manifesto on this case, other cases. You've seen them cite left-wing agitprop nonsense. No kings, Trump's a pedophile, all this stuff. And what do? They go the other way. They start introducing variable upon variable that has nothing to do with the problem. It's a way to diffuse responsibility away from them. Don't ever forget that. The imbecile does the opposite. They introduce confounding variables that have nothing to do with the answer. That's what Navarro's doing here. What was the confounding variable she threw in there? Oh, it's definitely gun control. We got to work on this gun control thing. Really? Justin, is D.C. known for its constitutional carry status? You don't know, Josh? No. He's saying, it's stunning. I didn't know I was in D.C. I thought they were a constitutional. Of course, I'd again be. You're telling me so Washington, D.C. doesn't have some strict, quote, gun control? There's no such thing as gun control. It's gun confiscation crap. Even the variable she cites doesn't make any sense. You see what they do? This is the mark of the moron. Introduce confounding variables in an effort to never get the answer because we already have the answer. Left-wing agitprop. Violent political talk. We already have the answer. You see this in Podcastistan too. Joey Bag of Donuts engaged in this violent act. We've got this piece of evidence, that piece of evidence. Oh, I don't know. It was a plane that landed 6 weeks ago. Who the cares? That has nothing to do with this. That is the mark of the imbecile. It is a confounding variable. It has nothing to do with the answer. There it is. It's even shaped like a microphone podcast. And I did not make that up, by the way. I just want to be clear. I don't know who did. However, it's a great line. But Justin did make up the island that podcast. It's even shaped like a microphone. I'm going to show you this clip, and I'm going to take a quick break here. But this is important because it's now we're going to kind of circle back to the beginning of the show. Why are foreign malicious actors pouring money into the bloodstream of the United States social media environment to sow distrust in everyone? Don't believe Patel. Don't believe Bongino. Don't believe Trump. Don't believe JD. Don't believe Rubio. Don't believe it. Why are they doing that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have never seen these clips by Yuri Bezmenov, you're in for a treat because Yuri Bezmenov was a former KGB agent in the Soviet Union who explained exactly why the Soviets at the time, but it applies now too, exactly why foreign actors want to make sure you have the answer and then become confused in reverse by variables that confuse you as to what the answer really is. Creates informational chaos. It creates distrust. It creates a desire for the whole system to collapse, because if I can't trust anybody in the system, what the hell do I need a system for? Listen to this.
Or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism.
Folks, I really can't explain it any better. You know, some guy said to me, sent me an email and said, I'm trusting you. You told me stare you in the eyes. And well, I'm telling you to stare me in the eyes. I've seen it. This money flow by foreign enemies of the United States who absolutely hate and revile this country and want to see it collapse, want to see the tent collapse, the tent pole fall, everybody inside to suffocate. They're doing exactly this. They're sowing distrust so that you trust no one. And once you trust, this is a system based on, at some point in a representative democracy, our constitutional republic, at some point, there has to be at least some fidelity to our Constitution and a system. If there's none, there's no reason for being. You win elections and you get your people in charge, and within 5 seconds, you got a bunch of people going, well, don't trust that guy either. You should be a little skeptical, like, wow, that's kind of weird, especially because the trust me, bro days are over. I agree. But when people say to you, well, trust me on this because I know something's happening, and then the thing that's happening happens, then I think they've earned your trust, correct? And when the other people who said trust me, the other people who say, trust me, tell you nothing is happening, and then those things happen, why would you give them your time anymore? I don't understand, folks. Be careful who you trust. Listen to me. Viciously guard your time. Viciously guard your time. I'm going to show you something coming up next that you really need to pay attention to, too, because it talks about this diffused responsibility, rationalization, that I am not convinced the attacks on President Trump are done and over, folks. I only say that, not that there's some, active, I've been out for a couple months. I'm just telling you, like, this left-wing rhetoric, there are so many crazy people out there just waiting for a reason to attack President Trump, and the left keeps delivering it on a silver platter. The psychology of this is transparent. I'll show you what I mean coming up next. Quick break here. Folks, you ever needed medication and turned into a whole ordeal?
I like how
you're calling around looking for a doctor, dealing with insurance, and somehow
he doesn't like to read the commercials. I'm thinking, okay, there you go. Oh, we're here. Yeah. Okay.
Be an email and said, I'm trusting you. You told me stare you in the eyes. And well, I'm telling you to stare me in the eyes. I've seen it. This money flow by foreign enemies of the United States who absolutely hate and revile this country and want to see it collapse, want to see the tent collapse, the tent pole fall, everybody inside to suffocate. They're doing exactly this. They're sowing distrust so that you trust no one. And once you trust, this is a system based on, at some point in a representative democracy, our constitutional republic, at some point, there has to be at least some fidelity to our Constitution and the system. If there's none, there's no reason for being. You win elections and you get your people in charge, and within 5 seconds, you got a bunch of people going, well, don't trust that guy either. You should be a little skeptical, like, wow, that's kind of weird, especially because the trust me, bro days are over. I agree. But when people say to you, well, trust me on this because I know something's happening, and then the thing that's happening happens, then I think they've earned your trust, correct? And when the other people who said trust me, the other people who say, trust me, tell you nothing is happening, and then those things happen, and it's in Trump, and the left keeps delivering it on a silver platter.
Hold on. I think I went back.
That's all family sowing of chaos. Imagine it's your wife's 50th birthday, right? And it's like a month out or so. Justin, if this is an example stupid, tell me to shut up. It's your wife's 50th birthday. You really love your wife. It's not like you want to get out of the marriage. You love your wife so much. And your wife threw you this banger of a 50th birthday party. Justin's like, is this your story? No. No, it is. But she did throw me a great 50th. Right? She throws you this amazing 50th, and you want to throw her a surprise party. And it's like a month out, and she's really annoyed at you because she's like, I can't believe I threw this amazing, right? This is oddly specific, isn't it? And she's like, what the hell, man? I did all this great stuff for you, and you don't even throw me. Meanwhile, you know you have this like banger of a party for her 50th, but you can't say anything. And then it's like a week out, and it's getting dangerous. Like she's ready to divorce you for not throwing a 50th, even though you got this huge thing planned. That's what this felt like leaving the government, because I know what's going on. And to watch a bunch of uninformed assholes, this is why he said, I can't, I have to go. I'm so emotional about this stuff. Start to tell you, oh, you can't, this MAGA thing's falling apart. This MAGA civil war. We can't believe it. It's just really, really freaking irritating. Because they never, ever, there's no accountability at all. None. I don't know where that story came from. Although it wasn't this, but she kind of knew at the end. Look at this Wall Street Journal article. This is what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why President Trump is a unique threat. I'm not sitting here armchair quarterbacking anybody. I'm just telling you, when it comes to Secret Service resources and the protective bubble around President Trump, this guy is a unique threat, President Trump. There's never been anything like him in American history. We have to rethink everything. There are no sacred cows in the Secret Service, because if you read this piece by Jonathan Alpert, he's a mental health professional, he wrote in the Wall Street Journal. It's so good. It says, when rationalization turns deadly. He talks about when people commit these acts of political violence, how they rationalize it to make themselves believe they're like doing the right thing. He says this is what therapists call rationalization. It's more consequential than it looks. Once frustration is aimed at a broad target, i.e. diffuse responsibility, what I said before. Aim your frustration at a broad target, corporations, the wealthy, the system. It starts to act like moral credit. Something was taken from me. So taking something back feels less like a violation and more like a correction. The question quietly shifts from, is this right, to who deserves it? Once it shifts, the answer usually follows. Yes. Another quick piece from this. Missing in this is how selective the reasoning is. Listen to this part. The same people who argue that corporations can absorb the loss if you steal from them, right, wouldn't apply that logic to people because they know what would happen. They wouldn't accept a friend taking money from them because it evens out, or excuse a colleague cutting corners on grounds that, well, others do worse. The principle holds only when the target feels distant. You see how these people shoot at President Trump, try to kill him and threaten him? And then you've got people from Podcastistan and elsewhere like, well, I understand it because Trump's complicit in social murder. I mean, you know, the system, bro, the system, the man did it. Rage against it, man. Rage against the dying. I mean, it's so dramatic. This is what they do. They diffuse responsibility to the system. This stuff is so dangerous. And no, the political violence problem this is not a both sides issue. The left has to torture the data to make you believe that there is this mass outbreak of violence on the right that equals Antifa, the BLM riots, all this other, the George Floyd riots. They have to make you believe this is a both sides thing so they can feel like, oh, well, we're just giving it to people who deserve it. Badia Sargon has this piece up in Substack. It's really good. It talks about how the left tortures the data to make you believe that the numbers are equal. It's a great piece, debunking the data that claims to show most political violence comes from the right. Most political violence comes from, you really believe this? They note that here's what the data is missing, folks. This is kind of important. Doesn't include the previous 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. Well, that sounds important. Nor the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Well, that sounds kind of important too. They note the data is based on prosecutions, which explains the absence of Thomas Crooks, too, at Butler. But it also doesn't include Ryan Ruth or Tyler Robinson. Couldn't find Elias Rodriguez either, who shot and killed 2 people outside the Jewish Museum in May of 2025. So they leave out all of these incidences of left-wing connected violence. But look at this. Of attacks on the right. The editing goes deeper, though. During the summer of 2020, the George Floyd riots were in full swing. Political violence claimed the lives of dozens of Americans, caused $2 billion in property damage. Yet the data set from this project lists a grand total of only 5 incidents of left-wing of violence that summer. Gee. Weird how that data looks, right-wing violence. Well, let's just ignore all the left-wing violence. And if you had one incident of right-wing violence and you ignore all the left-wing violence, of course it's going to look like it's a both sides issue. It is not a both sides issue, folks. It's not both sides. If you believe that, I'm sorry you've been suckered. Now, this next segment here, wait, let me just wrap this up. I don't want to forget this. Listen to me, please. To everyone in government who's going to be looking at this latest attempt on Donald Trump's life, there can be no sacred cows here. I said that my first day at the FBI. I want to see everything we're doing, and I want an explanation as to why, even if it seems obvious. And I'll get to that in a second. Donald Trump is a unique threat to the left. They will never stop. He has to be treated, his threat assessment, he has to be treated differently than prior presidents. We have to throw out all of our priors and rethink the whole security bubble around. We just do. Some stuff may stay, some stuff may go, but we just can't do things the same way anymore. It's not once, it's not twice, it's not 3 times. This is now multiple attempts. He is a unique threat to them, and he has to be treated differently. Flags in the chat, didn't even ask for him, people flag in the chat. Speaking of my time at the FBI, I say that because I think it would be very helpful. I think it would be very helpful to convene a executive kind of protection board of people who've done this in different spaces, private sector actors, people in the military, other entities. And I think it would be helpful to take a look, soup to nuts, read everybody in, make them sign NDAs on everything, and to take a look at this. Something's not right. Can we agree? Now, they're dealing with tremendous resource issues, but one of the things I did on day one, and here's the problem. You have this confirmation. In my experience in the government, you have this problem in government because there's no real incentive for a cost and quality fix. You don't really care what you're spending money on, the cost of it, because it's not your money. It's the taxpayers, and Milton Friedman issue, of course. And sometimes the quality doesn't matter either because you're not even buying it for yourself. Good leaders will get around that. However, not everybody's a good leader. I mean, look, we got stuck with Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, and Christopher Wray, okay? I went in there day one and I said, hey, guys, I need to see everything with fresh eyes. And the president wanted that too. The president appointed me and Cash for a reason, because he wanted fresh eyeballs on it. So I'll do my best to remain objective watching this segment here. But I saw this guy yesterday. Someone sent this to me. This is some former FBI guy, Steve Lazarus. He goes on, he starts this segment, it's not long, but talking about the difference between the FBI director position and the deputy, and he's not wrong about what he says. And then he goes on, and I'm not going to take a shot at this guy's service. Apparently he served in the government. I think he served in the military, and thank you for that. That's great. But to claim like I had a cup of coffee at the Secret Service, that was a long cup of coffee, 12 years. I don't know how long that coffee's going to last. So that's kind of a dickhead move. But that, of course, is people who couldn't change the FBI for the better themselves, whatever. But I want you to listen to this guy. And I want to show you why Donald Trump does everything different in his administration. And he's not interested in the old adage like, well, that's the way we've always done it. If that's the way you've always done it, then why isn't it working? This doesn't last in the private sector. Check this out.
Info. People ask about Dan Bongino too. So Dan Bongino was hired to be the deputy, and here's the difference, and that your listeners may or may not know about the director and the deputy director of the FBI. You can fake it till you make it as the director for a period of time, because the director doesn't need to be as up on the nuts and bolts and the Fred Astaire dance steps on the floor, so to speak. The deputy director is the COO, is the chief operating officer of the FBI. And
he's the real dude.
Everything we do. Yeah. He has to know what sensitive circumstances are for T3s and FISAs. He has to know everybody there's a reason that the deputy director has always been an agent, right? Because it's someone who's been an agent, a supervisor, an ASAC, an SAC, an assistant director,
the real deal,
all the way up.
Right.
And they know where the bodies are buried, and they know how to do the job. So that's why I think Bongino got in and said, shit, I mean, that cup of coffee that I had over at Secret Service wasn't enough to prepare me to be the number 2 guy in the FBI. Right. I'm done. Yeah, I'm sure he's making more money now as a podcaster.
Yeah, Steve, you can take your stupid ass commentary and shove it right up your ass. Thank you for your service. I mean that sincerely. But if you were so good at the damn job, then why does the public think that the FBI sucks after your genius was applied when you were in the position? I'm just kind of curious. I just threw this in Google Gemini, which is an AI system. It's like, hey, give me the public approval rating of the FBI as of around 2025 before Donald Trump get in. So you guys did such a great job. The FBI, which have been lauded in movies and Netflix specials. And I mean, there's all kinds of shows like, legendary cases of the FBI. People have loved the FBI. They note in Gemini, as of late 2025, public approval of the FBI remains polarized and relatively low overall, with approximately 36 to 42% of adults rating the agency's job performance as excellent or good. So let's say it's 40% think it's excellent. So 60% really don't think it's excellent or good. That sounds to me like a problem, right, guys? 60%, Josh, is that a majority? I don't know. Steve Lazarus thinks I had a cup of coffee. Maybe I'm not good at math either, Steve-O. Steve, I've never heard of you before, but you're about to be famous today. You can go F yourself with the cup of coffee thing. When I was sitting there in Afghanistan and Indonesia and my kids were crying back at home because I was in a hot zone protecting a Democrat president because I believe in our republic. I don't know what you were doing at the FBI, but apparently 6 in 10 people think you fucking sucked. We need a deputy director who was an agent because they know where the bodies are buried. That was the problem there, Steve-O. Who buried the bodies? I know. Do you? Let me show you a couple more things about this because this is going to tie into the Hannity episode I was with. Sean Hannity's got a new podcast, Hang Out with Sean Hannity. The episode launches today. It's long. It's about 2 hours. It's the longest conversation I've had about what we actually did at the FBI and Steve and his regime did not do that led to 6 in 10 people thinking they suck. Real genius, this guy is. Here's my hit on Hannity describing the two FBIs and the problem we found when we got in there right away. I can tell you for sure, not even knowing Steve that well, Steve was probably part of the second FBI. Play this clip and you'll see what I mean. Check this out. Two FBIs trying to help you solve the A, B, and C problems, and that's FBI 1 and FBI 2. Like there's two FBI. Yes, there were two FBIs. There was the FBI of like bust your ass, VCAC agents, violent crimes against children, white collar agents, violent crime fugitive task force. And some of these guys, I was just honored to be in the room. They were like, we have this TFO, task force officer down in Miami. This guy, his first name is Joe, I won't say his last name. This guy's been on the job 38 years. You know how many violent criminals are off the street because of this guy and the agents he works with? I mean, he's a TFO, but the agents were like that too. And then you had this other FBI, which was populated with, to say, unfortunately, snakes as being nice. And here's a problem, Sean. It wasn't always obvious which FBI they were in. So you're trying to solve like a level A problem, which has like no solution. There's a shitty solution and a shittier one. And I got to tell you, it's almost like a coin toss because either way, someone's going to get hurt. Okay. And you're trying to figure this out and you're asking someone for advice. You've only been there a couple weeks and you don't know if that person is part of the good FBI or the bad FBI. And then people who I thought we could trust, you go out and you would ask them some questions. They would give you bad advice too. And then tell everyone else they were giving you good advice when they gave you bad advice. Steve's such a genius that the FBI, 6 out of 10 people thought they sucked. I saw this in my cup of coffee at the Secret Service. It was a long cup of coffee. Took 12 years to drink, but traveled the world to 37 countries. That cup of coffee made it a long way. I'm surprised the milk didn't go bad. You know what it is? I use that like that creamer stuff that never goes. It's like a Twinkie. A nuclear war could happen and the Twinkie survives. That was in that cup of coffee, Steve. What Steve didn't understand is the Trump administration was going to think about things differently. They wanted fresh eyes in there for a reason, because that's the way we've always done it was not acceptable. Because the way you always did it led to the Russia collusion hoax, Arctic frost, and many, many other scandals we know about, including the Mar-a-Lago raid and elsewhere. People we had to dismiss, people we had to let go. For this smart ass who asked me to pretend to be my friend, and what happened to the other one? Well, listen to the damn show and you'll figure it out. If you're so smart, Steve, then how come you were part of an FBI that was telling the American public how white supremacy was the most grave terror threat we had? Really? That was a fascinating. When I went in there and dissected that one and could see no actual evidence that was the biggest problem we had on the DT domestic terror front. Did you speak out about it? I don't know. Maybe you did. What about the drone program that was just barely in its infancy when we exploded that and started the drone school? Was that just due to my cup of coffee at the Secret Service? What about the crime rate dropping? What about the violent crime initiatives that largely had been lying dormant in the FBI? You had a sliver of a field office out investigating violent crimes. What about the training with antiquated courses? What about the DEI pushes we had to get rid of? Here's another one. You want to hear? Here's an easy one. Steve's such a genius. Let me tell you another one here. This is an easy one. These FBI agents would retire, right? And they'd have to give back their guns. And I said, well, why are we doing that? These guys, flee so they can carry their guns in retirement. Why are we? And I'm like, well, what are we doing with the guns? And Steve was there. Maybe Steve could have fixed this problem. You know what they were doing with the guns, fellas? Any ideas? Yes, they were destroying them. Perfectly good firearms. I said, why are we doing that? They said, well, it was like a Janet Reno. Janet Reno? Why didn't you fix that? That was an easy one. So because I'm a results guy, here's what your year there produced. And as we see today with this new COVID indictment, the new indictments out of Minneapolis, the SPLC, and other things coming. Here's what we actually produced in that year that Steve just couldn't. Tens of thousands of arrests, 110% increase in violent crime arrests, 20% decrease in homicides. Steve, why couldn't you do that? 20% decrease in robberies. You know better, right? 9% decrease in aggravated assaults, 1,800 gang disruptions in criminal enterprises, 2,200 kilos of fentanyl seized, up 31%, 21 cyber-related dismantlements, 346 cyber-related indictments, all up dramatically from when Steve was there. Oh, there's more? I didn't even notice that. 40% FTOC, foreign transfer of custody, is where we go grab people overseas. Look at that, 42% increase in counterintelligence arrests. 1,700 child predators arrested, up 17%. 6,000 child victims located. Steve, why didn't you do that? I'm just curious. 7 of it's now 8, actually, of the FBI's 10 most wanted captured. Why didn't you catch them? I'm just curious. Why didn't you catch them? It's a bigger argument here. Forget Steve. Steve's a 0. But, dude, thank you for your service. The larger argument is about tying this back to the beginning of the show. That's why I brought this in today at the end. There are a class of doomers and grifters out there who want nothing more than apply Yuri Bezmenov's KGB principles within the United States. They want you to distrust everyone and distrust your eyeballs. You see the numbers yourself. You can look those up. They want you to distrust everyone, so the whole system collapses. This other FBI I walked into with these snakes in there, this other FBI, it was worse than you can imagine. Thankfully, we're rid of most of those people. But be careful going forward. There are a lot of people out there who want to make sure that you never see that true north on the compass. I want to show you a clip coming up next that is going to be, for me, a little hard to watch, but it's worth your time. I'll just leave that there. I don't want to say too much, but please just stay tuned for this. It's bigger than this show or even this topic, but it explains a lot. Quick break here, folks. You know I'm not a big gambler, but I've been having a lot of fun looking at marketplace predictions from everything from politics to sports. Kalshi, Kalshi, is where I get the best insights on predictions, from sports to politics to finance to any variety of markets people are monitoring. Kalshi.com is a bookmark you need. Featured them in my last election special. They were spot on. Our president was elected as predicted. Kalshi.com is one of the only places where you can trade on real world events in all 50 states. Go to Kalshi.com/Bongino. Get a free $10 credit when you trade $100. It's not just politics or economics. They've got markets on everything from sports to pop culture to climate predictions. Kalshi has a pulse on what the world thinks will happen. Go to Kalshi.com/Bongino. Get a free $10 credit when you trade $100. That's Kalshi.com/Bongino. Kalshi.com/Bongino. Check it out. You must be 21. The purchaser must be present in the state where the trade is placed. See important disclosures at Kalshi.com. Kalshi subject to U.S. regulatory oversight by the CFTC. Thanks, Kalshi. Check him out. I want to play this clip because in this interview I did with Sean on his podcast, we get into a lot of things, including, the cancer diagnosis I had 5 years ago. So I saw this clip of former Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse. Ben Sasse is in the late stages of pancreatic cancer. You'll notice in this clip where he's interviewing with 60 Minutes that the skin on his face is red. It's from a cancer treatment that destroys your skin cells on your face too. He's trying to survive. He was given 6 months. He's magically still here. But he's asked a question, not just about the cancer, but about power and positions and titles in D.C. I say this because no matter how many times I tell people that I was pretty clear with Cash early on, I can do the year. And I told him I'd have to flip the calendar for him. I can flip the calendar to January, but I have that year. I had a year. I had a mission. And we moved on it. No matter how many times I say that, people are confused because I don't think they're used to people walking away from power or titles because it just seems to define them. I was proud of the mission, but it didn't define me ever. I'm proud that I did that. I was proud to be your deputy director for the year, but it doesn't define me. I want you to listen to this with Ben Sass. He's talking about politicians in general in D.C. And unfortunately, I see a lot of this. Tough clip, but check it. Never define yourself by a title. And don't fall in love with power and, what do they call it? Earpiece envy, like security details and looking like the man and stuff. Feel free to define your mission, engage in your mission, and then to walk away and go back to your life. That's okay. That's okay. I know some of these people can't do that. I know that's why we need, there's always talk of term limits, because if you don't force them, they'll never leave. It's never been me. I had a mission. We moved on it. I was proud of that. It was one of the best years of my life. But cancer, it'll change you. Now, Ben Sass has a far worse cancer than I had. I had lymphoma. It's never fun to go through that, but it will change you. Everyone's got an expiration date. You just don't want to know what it is. Folks, he's talking about D.C. being just populated by really unsophisticated, stupid people. And the problem with populating D.C. with stupid people who, again, take an answer and then reverse the answer into polluted data is when you're run by stupid people, when the country's run by stupid people, then understandably, at least with the stupid people lose trust. But sometimes there is like this mass awakening event that happens. We saw it with the Tea Party and the BCA in the Obama years, where a bunch of people seem to wake up and have a road to Damascus moment at one time. I want to show you this individual example of what I mean. You know about this Obama library out there outside of Chicago there? There's an Obama library going up, and people who may or may not have been Obama supporters, but, probably based on the voting patterns of people in Chicago are really pissed off at this library. This is what it looks like when you feel like you've been kicked in the nuts by your own people here, by people you had supported or friends of yours had in the past. Watch this.
Obama, we're calling on you and Michelle. You and Michelle, come and apologize to Chicago for doing this. You come and apologize to South Shore for moving all these people out, displacing all these people, having J.B. Brister steal our property. Obama, before you come and cut that ribbon on this ugly building, come and apologize to South Side of Chicago, to Chicago, period. Period. People stood behind you, thinking that you was going to be about something, and you wasn't about nothing. You owe us an apology.
Where's that watermark? Chicago flips, hat tip to them, or Chicago files on my eyesight's good, but not that good. This is what happens when people who believed in you in the past, right? They believed in Obama, whatever it is, get shafted, and they realize that these people really don't care about you at all. Folks, the class of morons in D.C., unfortunately, is a graduating class of thousands. When it comes to Congress, the Senate, some people on these left-wing staffs and others, we are being led in many cases by idiots who have no principles or morals at all. This is my "we're being led by morons" segment when it comes to the Democrat Party up on the Hill and around there. I want to show you first a clip of Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren's being interviewed. She's asked about a guy running for Senate who has apparently a Nazi tattoo. Now, you would think this would be like a bad thing, right? Kind of, sort of, yeah. Watch Elizabeth Warren trying to justify this. Pow wow chow Elizabeth Warren, who pretended to be an Indian when she thought she could use it to advance her own power. This is a woman defined by her title only. She will never walk away from power because she doesn't have anything else. These are the people in charge right now on the Democrat side. Check this out.
Campaign with Graham Plattner, who is ahead of that state's very pivotal Democratic primary. And I wanted to ask you about something you said. You said he's your kind of man. And I've interviewed you for a long time and watched your hearings and listened to your questions. You care about character. This is a guy that had a chest tattoo with a Nazi symbol. Okay, he apologized for it. It's a guy that reportedly wrote that people concerned about rape should take some responsibility for themselves and not get so effed up that they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to. He praised military tactics used by Hamas, reportedly, in comments online and Reddit when they were murdering Israeli soldiers. So I'm just curious why you think he's your kind of man.
So as you rightly point out, he has apologized. He's out meeting with the people of Maine every single day so they can evaluate not who Graham Plattner was, but who Graham Plattner is today.
So just to be clear, fellas, because I'm a little confused, Donald Trump is definitely a Nazi, but the guy with the actual Nazi tattoo is not, because he's got a Nazi tattoo and just said, hey, sorry about that. Is that the way that works? Justin says, correct. Okay, just checking. Now you see why there's a brewing sense of frustration. I just don't want this to pollute the entire ecosystem where you trust no one ever. There is an idiocracy here, but once you learn to separate them out, you'll be a far better person. Here's another one. Cue up that Ilhan Omar. You probably saw this. I'm not really sure what's worse about this clip. First, you're going to listen to Ilhan Omar talking about how dumb you all are for voting for President Trump. And then you're going to hear part two, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It's a bit of a jump cut to something that happened just the other day. And tell us who the real idiocracy is. Is it us voting for Donald Trump, or Ilhan Omar who thinks she missed 9 world wars? Check this out.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people. The dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again?
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport German, Japanese, Italian immigrants during World War XI.
World War XI. Well, you believe that, guys? We missed the other 9. That is insane. That's a lot to miss. World Wars broke out. What's that? Who's dumb? Oh, yeah. Hat tip Western Lensman. It's a great account for video. Put that together, by the way. Now, she does just a second or two later say, oh, World War II. Because unlike them, I will be fair to Ilhan Omar. However, I think Matt Walsh said it on Twitter this morning best. I'm not sure what's worse, and I'm really not, that Ilhan Omar's never seen Roman numerals, or that Ilhan Omar is confused about 9 world wars we all missed. I don't know which one's worse. Now, I said to Justin this morning, I would understand this if there was some squiggly figure and it looked like it said World War III. There hasn't been a World War III, but people talk about it so much. Like, I could see her making a mistake. World War XI? How would you miss 9? Maybe you missed 1. You were sleeping. I don't know. You were in a cryo chamber. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's like that movie Arrival, where like the creatures show them how to talk in language and time, just everything happens at once kind of thing. I don't know. That's true. The Leering Center. Maybe she went to the Leering Center at some point. It gets better. The idiocracy gets better. And by better, I mean worse. Here is Rosa DeLauro up in Congress. Now, she's interviewing up on the Hill in a hearing Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, who's a very good guy and a friend. Folks, if you haven't seen this clip, you are in for something special. A little over a minute, however. If you are a member of Congress and you don't know what Chevron deference